Part in that. And now with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first panelist, Danny Boulos with Freddie Mac. Danny is the senior manager at corporate sustainability at Freddie Mac, and with a strategic focus on climate impact at Freddie Mac, his role blends sustainability market expertise with business and financial analysis to drive meaningful organizational change. Oh, Danny will say a few words, and then he will introduce our panelists from Clearly Energy. Danny, take it away.
Thanks for having me, everybody. Thank you, Ellie, for that great introduction. We do have some presentation to share. Is Jake able to share a screen? Up, there you go, right on cue. You can go to the next slide, Jake, when you get a chance. Awesome, thanks. So thank you again, everyone, for having us today. So, as Ellie said, I work in the corporate sustainability office at Freddie Mac, and when we use the term sustainability in our division, we're essentially talking about the sustainability and longevity of Freddie Mac as a company, but obviously that is very much interconnected with the housing market and the health of the mortgage finance industry writ large. Obviously, if there's issues in the housing market, whether it be from climate, financial, or otherwise, that impacts our ability to continue to serve our mission and achieve our vision, which is, as you can see here, in a changing world, our sustainability efforts help ensure we can continue to make home possible and really keep home possible. I would add equitably and responsibly for families across the nation. And within the corporate sustainability office here at Freddie, we have three, core anchor priorities that we're continuously pursuing and revisiting on a day-to-day, quarter-to-quarter, year-to-year basis, which is about protecting the future of housing, promoting inclusive communities, and upholding responsible operations. So that's just a little bit about us. Uh, Sustainably at Freddie Mac and our office specifically. Jake, if you want to go to the next slide. Thanks. So today we're here to talk about energy efficiency and household energy performance. And before I turn it over to our friends at Clearly Energy to talk about their capabilities, including a tool that anyone can obtain for free within the iOS App Store, I wanted to talk a little bit about just kind of our market observations, having worked in this space and tracked a lot of data and reached out to a lot of stakeholders in regards to this energy impacts to housing writ large. So the it kind of boils down to four fundamental facts that we've observed over since I've been here in 2022. So utility bills can be a significant household expense, specifically in a low to moderate income families where they have less disposable income to absorb pricing shocks and volatility in the utility market. And as I'm sure many of you across the country have seen over the last several years, we continue to see increases in the cost per kilowatt hour of electricity state to state. It's typically been in the double digits since in terms of percent change since say like 2021 and onward. We've also observed that homeowners and renters should have ready access to understand their home's energy performance, along with actionable information in terms of what they can do to reduce costs, to improve household energy performance, and strategically make investments to do so over time. And the interesting thing is that that information and those processes exist in the market, but they're not as widely known or always accessible to individual households, depending on their location and financial situation, etc. What we found is universally, whether you're a renter, a homeowner, you live in a new build, or an existing home, the one sort of best place to start, no matter your situation, is the home energy rating, or which is kind of the end result, really. But typically, you'll hear the term home energy assessment or energy audit process, where consumers can obtain this information and actionable insights. But again, as I was saying earlier, consumers often lack awareness that this is the best place to start, and this is a great process to embark on to understand sort of your home's energy baseline, how much of your utility costs is being spent on heating versus cooling versus um, other power sources, et cetera, and what you can ultimately do about it. We've also observed in the traditional model where you order someone to come to the home, and an energy auditor to come and perform this assessment. Um, it can um, A couple of issues persist with that model. Is that, one, they're not always available in certain markets, particularly rural and historically underserved communities. The process, even with tax credits and rebates, can be both time consuming and still somewhat costly and cost prohibitive. So we've been working with our folks at Clearly Energy to help roll out and promote a solution that allows the individual homeowner or tenant to uh, obtain those insights themselves, which Jake and team are talk a little bit more about right now. But ultimately, our hypothesis is that consumers have, if they have this information about why energy performance matters, what their current performance of their home looks like, and the actions that they can take to improve, including access to financial incentives and support tools to help finance that journey to a more efficient home, they're more likely to take those actions. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jake and team from Clearly to talk about our partnership and this opportunity.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Danny. My name is Jake Barnett, and I am a energy and climate analyst here at Clearly Energy that works on all things residential. And I'm excited to present about our tool remotely today. So just to provide a little bit of background about who Clearly Energy is and what we do, Clearly Energy is a majority-owned, women-owned small business that works at the nexus of public policy and software solutions, trying to reduce energy consumption in residential, commercial, and jurisdictional buildings, as well as tracking data insights and helping to implement energy policies across the country. Um, so why we're here today, Danny's painted a really good picture about kind of what the energy landscape is, highlighting the fact that energy bills and monthly energy costs are a non-insignificant portion of household monthly bills. And traditional home energy assessments are typically the first step to reducing your energy consumption by assessing what actually is in your home, what needs to be replaced and retrofit, and what are the incremental and cost-saving steps that you can take to achieve reduced energy consumption. Clearly Energy has been developing a virtual home energy assessment tool called Remotely that is a project supported by the Department of Energy's Small Business Innovation Research Award program. Remotely is built upon the Department of Energy's Home Energy Score program, which is a standardized metric to measure and compare homes' efficiency. If you're not familiar with the program, it can be thought of a homes miles per gallon rating, where 1 is the least efficient home and 10 would be your perfectly most efficient home. Clearly Energy built the Remotely tool to help facilitate virtual home energy assessments. Traditional home energy assessments have some barriers that are to note, including the time of process, high costs, inability to access remote regions, as well as just general accessibility issues. So developing a virtual home energy assessment was designed to garner greater adoption of the home energy assessment process and help people better understand their energy consumption. Today, Clearly Energy is offering to have you pilot test the Remotely tool free of charge. And all we're looking for is feedback on the application to help inform us as we improve usability of the application. Let me go forward. So as we kind of touched on why energy costs matter, this is especially pertinent for traditionally underserved communities where their energy burden, or the rate, the percentage of their income spent on monthly energy costs is significantly higher. This can be reduced through initially performing a home energy assessment and then retrofitting the home with the new energy efficiency upgrades, simultaneously making your home more livable, as well as reducing monthly utility bills. So this is the Remotely application, and we have a little demo video for you in a second, so we're excited to show you what that looks like. But the Remotely tool, as I've mentioned, is a remote assessment which seeks to remedy the shortfalls of traditional home energy assessments, including the high cost, delays, and a time-consuming process. Remotely is a smartphone-based application that uses innovative technologies like augmented reality and LiDAR to efficiently estimate and aggregate a home's energy footprint. The Remotely tool can be used to document installations and unlock incentives based on your locality. For instance, if you live in a state, you may have access to various heat pump efficiency incentives or rebates. Remotely can be used currently on single-family homes as well as condos. However, the application cannot be used for larger multifamily properties at the moment. As I mentioned earlier, Remotely is built upon the Department of Energy's Home Energy Score question set. The Home Energy Score is a 1 to 10 rating, as I mentioned. You can see kind of a sample report on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. The full report would provide you an entire breakdown of your home's building construction, looking at the entire building envelope from the windows to the ductwork to the insulation to the air sealing, as well as looking at the different heating and cooling systems that you have, and then providing a rating based on this. And then in turn, providing you cost-saving energy efficiency recommendations on how you can retrofit your home and improve your home energy score as well as reduce your energy costs. Let me see, I think this next slide, yes. Bear with me 1 second while I pull up the demo video for everyone. Be a quick turnaround. Okay. Perfect. I believe that should be good. Okay, so we created this demo video just to highlight the capabilities of the Remotely tool and provide a brief and abbreviated overview of what the assessment process looks like. I don't go through every single question set, so there are things that you will see that if you do the assessment that aren't present in this video. But as Danny mentioned earlier, currently Remotely is available on all Apple products, iPhones and iPads. It's not a computer-based software, but if you go to the App Store, you can download the Remotely application and you would see this home screen by adding a home. That's the first step of any assessment, inputting the basic home information. In this case, I'm using New York. Your home is geocoded, meaning that if I am in New York and I say I am in New Jersey, the application would not allow you to do this. The application knows where you are when you are performing this so that everything is streamlined and you are doing what you say you're doing. In this case, for the Freddie pilot program, you would input the program code Freddie to signify that you are a member of this pilot program. The application does not capture any sort of identifying or biographical information besides the address of the home as well as an email address. This is just needed so that we can share the home energy score once the assessment has been completed. Once you have begun this part of the assessment, you'll see throughout the entire application, there are various welcome and help screens that help guide the user on what to do. There may be instances where you don't understand exactly what something is. The Remotely application is designed to be accessible and inform you what you should be looking for. We like to say the Remotely application is kind of an accordion style questionnaire. So you start out with the basic building envelope, looking at the construction, the walls, the roof, the ducts, and the air sealing. And it breaks apart to ask you pretty generic questions at first in terms of how many stories, when it was built, finding the orientation of your home based on the compass, the application's compass. Once this completes, as I mentioned earlier, there are prompts and helpful information for questions that may be a little bit obscure. For instance, if you're not familiar with the R value of your insulation is, which is the level of heat resistance that the insulation provides, we have helpful guides based on your climate zone to inform you on what your insulation likely is. There are questions that are required, as well as some have the optional ability to provide a range or a year, as opposed to, for instance, a direct efficiency rating of a heating system. This right now is one of the more exciting features. This is the augmented reality feature, which was developed with our project partners at Signatron, the originators of Google Street View. Basically, what you do is you walk around the perimeter of your home to capture the actual square footage. There's a video embedded, as there are videos throughout this application, that help guide you on what to do if you're unsure. I will show you the basic kind of premise of this. This is used for measuring ceiling height as well as floor area. When you open up the augmented reality feature, you get this little yellow box that is open. Once it locks onto the floor, in this case to measure ceiling height, you are able to tap. If you do not correctly tap, you're able to undo that tap and then try to do it again. And then you would tap to measure the top. So in this case, I believe it was 8 feet. And once that's done, you can either remeasure, or for accessibility purposes, if I already know that I have a ceiling height of 8.5 feet, for instance, I could edit this measurement and manually input it, as opposed to having to measure it with augmented reality. Similarly, the same feature is used to measure the floor plan, the floor area, I should say, not the floor plan. But you would essentially tap each corner of your home. The dog does not come with the application, but you would tap each corner of your house one by one. Corners that are hidden still can be captured, as you can see in this little video here. I just jumped ahead just for the purposes of time, but once you've sequentially mapped each 4 corners, if your home was a rectangle, if it were a square, you'd go 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you would complete this part of the assessment. If you know, for instance, that it is 1,000 square feet instead of 914, again, I could edit this and manually input it just to increase expediency of the process. Window measurements use the same feature, the same augmented reality feature. Windows are measured room by room. So for instance, if I know that I have 8 of the same square foot single pane wood vinyl clear glazing window in my living room, I can aggregate this manually and just select these one by one, and then say that I have 8 of these of 10 square feet, and the application captures that for you, as opposed to having to manually measure each window one by one. In this case, for the home energy score purpose, you need the direction of the window and what it's facing. If you use the augmented reality feature, it derives that location for you, but in this case, you would have to manually map it. One of the last aspects of the assessment are looking at your heating and cooling systems. In this case, I think I show a water heater. Yes, so there are basic questions, including what type of water heater you have, what the fuel type is, where it's located. Again, helpful prompts to provide guidance if you're unsure on what the water heater may be. It asks for information like energy factor. If this information is unknown, it's derived based on the year installed. Additionally, you'll need to take pictures of the water heater as well as the nameplate of the water heater. These photos can either be captured through the application, or you can upload them from your camera roll if you already have these photos for whatever reason that may be. But the application does not capture any sort of video and does not kind of continue using your camera after you're done with the assessment. Once you've completed the entire process, you would get this submit screen. If, for instance, there's aspects of the application that are required that you are missing, it would let you know, and would force you to go back into the assessment and add that. If, however, you have completed the assessment fully, you would receive this screen, and we would send you a completed unofficial home energy score in the coming days. Let me unshare this screen really quick and jump back. Bear with me 1 second. Okay. No, we don't want to play from start. Let's jump to here. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, and as Danny mentioned, we're really here today to offer a no-cost pilot testing opportunity for all of the stakeholders on this call. Previously, we kind of had two different models and methodologies of administering this pilot testing. If a homeowner is kind of a self-starter and someone that is comfortable, maybe they're familiar with home energy assessments or just home assessments in general, this could be more of a homeowner-driven model that it receives various support from ClearlyEnergy, and the homeowner could really take the onus on themselves to perform their individual assessments. However, if organizations on this call would prefer to be more of a partner organization, for instance, they have some local expert or staff members that are experienced with home energy assessments, and want to spearhead a pilot project, ClearlyEnergy is also open to working with these organizations as well, to ensure that members of the organizations are familiar with how to use the tool and could provide guidance as well as helpful materials. We have a toolkit that we've created that can guide organizations as well as homeowners on what they need and what they should be doing when using the application. Just to reiterate, the pilot program has no cost to the users or the pilot or the partner organizations. And when using the application, program participants would use the code FREDDY to signify that they're part of the FREDDY program and access this application's assessment. Next slide, let's jump back. Just to kind of highlight the transparency of data collection during the application. The application collects the data on the left-hand side, including email addresses, home address, basic home attributes, heating and cooling efficiency ratings, as well as pictures of the roof, insulation, system nameplates, and a couple of other home attributes. What's not collected, though, are homeowner names, any video of the home, demographic information, and to note, these would be unofficial home energy scores. The only way to generate an official home energy score would to have a certified home energy score assessor conduct an assessment. In this case, an unofficial score does not mean there's any difference in the results that are generated. It just means that the score has a superimposed unofficial on it, and that the records will not be entered into a real estate or other form of records. The score is unofficial. We have this pilot commitment slide. I think ClearlyEnergy has various capabilities and mechanisms to help support different pilot partners, whether that be initial pilot training sessions, regular check-ins, as well as a toolkit that we can share. I think, though, that we would be able to tailor kind of what we offer based on the needs of individual pilot programs. All we would ask in return for using the application is feedback to help us continue to develop it and improve user experience. As I briefly mentioned earlier, throughout the development, we've been working on a remotely toolkit that has various helpful resources and guides, including a demonstration video like you just saw, or one-pager, FAQ doc, a getting started guide, as well as other valuable resources. And these can be, again, tailored with logos or more pertinent information based on the kind of the necessities of your individual program. I think we're going to move to Q&A before starting this, but for those that are interested in trying the application, we are going to stay on the call later and can kind of provide any guidance or feedback as members of this call want to test the application. So for when that comes around later in the part of this presentation, you can look on the App Store and search for remotely home energy audits to find the tool, or you can scan this QR code, which I think we can bring up later. But I guess I could turn it back to Danny or Ellie, depending on who wants to take it from here.
Thanks, Jake. I will ask the questions. So the first thing that I want to point out, and Danny put this into the chat, somebody was trying to find the app in their iPhone and searched it by putting in remotely. And I tried that too. It doesn't come up that way, but there's two different ways you can find it. If you put in ClearlyEnergy, it pops up as the first thing, or you can put remotely, what is it again? It's home energy audits.
Yes.
and then it'll pop up. If anybody has any other problems getting that, just pop that into the chat. Okay, let's see. This question is for maybe Danny, or I mean any of you, but Bruce, I'm thinking you might know, or Danny, you might know. Anybody who knows. A Boston official seems to think the IRA Solar for All money is on hold. Can you confirm that it is, or will be available to states?
There are a variety of packages that are, so IRA is the Inflation Reduction Act. This was the huge Biden initiative that put out billions of dollars, some of it for bridge repair and things like that. This is, and what we're talking about, the Solar for All and Thriving Communities money. There are different packages that have kind of different statuses, and I'm not an expert on all of it, but essentially, um, some of it has not gone out from the EPA, and that money is, we believe, frozen. There are also monies that have been put out that have gone to um, a large group of nonprofits, and there's a lawsuit around those from the nonprofits because that money does seem to be being held up. And then there's the money which goes to the states, some of which has already been distributed to them. And our understanding is that in some of this, the funds are in the hands of either the local government or some of the nonprofits, and that they are still accessible and we believe are available still. We can't predict what's going to happen in the future. Um, so it may be that the Boston um, official knows more than we do. Um, we have not heard that the monies that we've been trying to access have been frozen, but there's certainly funds that have been, but it also might be that they're talking about a different pot of money in the many pots that are out there. I don't know if Christy or friends from Freddie or ClearlyEnergy have more to add to that.
It doesn't look like it. Nobody's coming off mute to jump in on that one. So thanks, Bruce. Okay. So is the app able to function in any other languages?
Yes, we have translated it into no Spanish. But I can get back to the list of we can share the list of languages that it is or will be available in. So I can't confirm all of the list right now, but we can share that in a follow-up.
And when you download the app, is it within the app that you can choose the language that you want?
I
Or do
believe
you have to download a different app for the
No, this
language?
would all be comprised within the application. We
Okay.
have continual software updates on the application. So in the current iteration that is available on the App Store at this moment, I cannot confirm that you have the setting ability to do that. I know we have translated the entire application and all the questions into at least Spanish. I do not know if the current iteration has that availability yet, but it would be all comprised within the same application.
Okay. You may need a little bit more detail about the question that this person is asking, and if you do, just say so, and they can, pop clarity into the Q&A box. But does ClearlyEnergy have a certification course that we can attend?
I guess there's a couple ways to answer that. Remotely would not require any sort of certification to conduct. Based on the nature that you are producing an unofficial home energy score, you would not have to be a certified home energy score assessor to produce an official score. If someone wanted to become a certified home energy score assessor, we could connect you with the correct resources at the Department of Energy to make that possible. That being said, there might be answering this question in a different way. If you are curious about having kind of guidance on how to use the application in the field just for your own guidance, or maybe a class for various stakeholders, that is something that we could talk about hosting an initial setup session or a guidance session on what would be needed and how to kind of use the application in the field. That being said, throughout the application, there are helpful guides and user accessible resources to help guide you. So everything is designed to be as easy to use as possible. I hope that answers the question.
And here's another very similar question that I think you partly answered, but I want to just ask you the question anyway. Does the training come with some type or level of certification, and do we have to be licensed by our state to conduct energy audits?
Yeah, so in a similar vein, you do not necessarily have to be a certified assessor. And in this case, this is under the Department of Energy's Home Energy Score program. So it's not like a HERS rate or something like that. This is a home energy score rating. You can use and test the application without being a certified assessor. If you are interested in becoming a certified assessor, we can connect you with the proper resources. But this application is designed so that someone, a layman, for instance, could use the tool and have no familiarity with home energy audits prior to using it. It would maybe take them a little bit more time, but someone that is not familiar should be able to use the application.
Can I piggyback off of that, Ellie?
Go for it.
Yeah, so just to add a little bit to what Jake was saying, I wanted to just like provide a little bit more clarity about the rating process and the official versus unofficial. So in some, if you were to obtain like an official home energy score or another home energy rating type called HERS, as Jake mentioned, that information is usually like publicly available and discoverable as part of your if you were ever to list your home, right? So the advantage of it being unofficial and having an individual homeowner or tenant do it is you can obtain the same insights without that information becoming publicly available. So what I plan to do personally is I use the application myself. I know Jake threw a lot of info in the demo to everybody, but it is very intuitive once you go through it sort of step by step. What I ended up discovering for my own home is that I have my biggest sort of bang for my buck project is improving the attic insulation and crawl space in the upper level of my home. Um, so I was able through the application to discover that, but also to identify incentives that would help reduce the cost of once the contractors came to my house and gave me quotes to improve the insulation. Um, and also ultimately my plan is to conduct an official home energy score once I've made those improvements. So I've been able to sort of obtain those insights using the application free of charge, make some improvement, and then my plan next after I've made those improvements is to obtain an official score from a licensed energy auditor so that my home now performs even better and I can market that when I eventually go to sell my home. In some localities, like in Portland, Oregon, and in Berkeley, California, and other localities, a home energy score at time of sale is actually a requirement. So, particularly folks who are counselors in those areas, this could be a way to advise um, their stakeholders as a means to improve their score before they actually go to list their house free of charge and make their home look even more appealing um, to prospective home buyers.
And I think you pointed that out a couple of different times, but I do want to remind everybody that the Remotely app on your phone is free. There's no charge to download that application. There's no charge to use it.
Mm-hmm.
There is a request that you, what is it that you put Freddie in someplace so that
Mm-hmm.
Freddie Mac can track? So go ahead. Can you explain that again, Danny?
Yeah, sure. It's just so the application requires like a program code. I think like Jake's worked with and team have worked with several partners in the past in different localities. For this pilot program, we're encouraging the folks who utilize the application to enter the Freddie program code. That way we can, work with the folks who are the users to kind of survey them to understand how their experience was, any recommended improvements for the application, and then we could also look at sort of how our cohort is performing and what type of insights that they're gaining, particularly in regards to potential home energy savings as a result of this pilot. So that's the need for the code and why we ask people to use it.
So
Maybe,
I will say I just went in, I
Mhm.
downloaded the app, and then I started to move through the process. It asked me for my address. And once I put the address in, which by the way, it pulled it up for me, I just had to boom, yeah, that's the one.
Mhm.
And then that's when it asked for the program code.
Mhm.
So it takes a couple of steps before you get to that. And
Right.
then I guess there's the other question of after the pilot, will there be a charge for this?
As far as our relationship between Freddie and Clearly, the answer is no. But I mean, I'm not sure, like longer term beyond that, Jake and Carolyn and team, if what your all's thoughts are of the application longer term.
Well, I would say one way or the other, download it now.
Yeah.
For the time being, under the Freddie program code, everything is free.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And just to second what Danny and Ellie were saying, you would not have access to the assessment without a program code. So you couldn't continue without using that. So it's just imperative to remember to input that.
Okay, and what is a thermally isolated sunroom?
Good question. So just to provide context, Home Energy Score is really interested and cares about the conditioned spaces of your home, meaning what areas are heated and cooled and what the size of them are. So a thermally isolated sunroom would be a sunroom that has heating and or cooling, but is isolated in the fact that it is on its own independent heating or cooling system, independent of the HVAC system that you're using for the entire building envelope of your standard home. I hope that provides context.
Yeah.
Okay. And I just want to clarify, so the code is Freddie. I don't think the quotation marks don't need to be there, right?
No.
It's just the word. Okay, just the word Freddie.
Mhm.
And that is all of our questions. I don't know if anybody else is gonna pop something in while we're talking, but if folks want to stick around, Jake's gonna do kind of a demo of the product and you can ask more questions then. So go ahead, Jake.
I guess in this sense, what we were hoping is that anyone that's still on the call has the ability to now go and test it. Would you mind if I share my screen again just to get the getting started
Oh,
app
go right ahead.
up there?
Go right ahead.
Hey, Ellie, why don't we just do a quick sort of tail end that we normally do now before some people will leave because they're probably at their workplace.
Okay.
Now? That
All
make-
right, go for it. Go ahead. So we'll do our wrap up, Jake, and then move to you.
So hold that in suspense. So just a quick plug around our membership. We do hope that you have you will join National Housing Resource Center. I mean, we are really an opportunity to actively pull together the housing counseling community and have a united voice around the things that are essential for your business. We will always want to provide webinars like these that are very practical for the community at large. We are deeply committed to supporting housing counseling, both in the in congressional and policy making government way and with the industry, with the lending industry, with real estate, but also the functioning of your particular operations and programs. So that's why we're thinking about these income generating programs, and we'll do a series around those. And again, if you were late to the call, we're recruiting more opportunities. So if you're doing some things that generate new sources of income that other counseling groups might replicate, please come and brag on it on our sessions. We really are at the very beginning here, and we hope to do a whole series of these. And we hope that they'll be useful. We know that when we did this 5 or 6 years ago, 7 years ago, there were a number of organizations that took up some of these tools, and some of them will be places where you might be a partnership with an existing organization. Some of these are things you can just do on your own. So keep that in mind. members, also NHRC members, will get occasional notices about interesting funding opportunities that you might not have heard about. We do occasionally have intriguing media opportunities, and we really reach out to the membership first to see if you'd like to be engaged in either local or national media. And we'll do all those kinds of things. We obviously our discounts are valuable. I was actually just pulling it up because it's pretty interesting. If you get the CoreLogic Credco savings program with us, compared to what their normal pricing is, you'll save $7.60 a credit report, which is substantial in and of itself. You pull 100 credit reports in a year, and I'm sure most of you are much larger than that. That's $760 you save. If you pull 500, which is probably in the league which many of you are doing, you're saving $3,800. If you pull 1,000, and I know a bunch of you are out there pulling those volumes and greater, that's $7,600. And then with the CRS discount, it's even a little bit larger. They will kind of explain the terms. They have a lot more upfront costs, and they have a minimum monthly amount that you have to pull 100 credit reports. So I mean, it's that probably is more outfitted for larger housing counseling groups, but their savings is $11.51 per credit report. So, quite a bit different in terms of money savings there. So that'll accumulate really more for larger users. We'd love for you to be engaged with this. And if you are a member already of NHRC, you'll need to be caught up on your membership dues for the year to get in on either of these discounts, but we'd love to have you in on them. We'll keep doing all those things, but at the end of the day, it's really about supporting the collective work to help us all keep the work growing and thriving. And we will continue doing that as the best of our ability. We understand it's a tough financial time for you, and it is for us as well. And we will, and your support is both appreciated and kind of necessary to keep us going at this work. We have a lot of good, we have the webinar coming up on MISMO, and I think Ellie talked about it very well. This is kind of our electronic future, and we got involved in this way back in an NHRC Leaders in Housing Counseling meeting 7 or 8 years ago, and David Young has done excellent work in this, and a lot of you have worked and helped on this. We're really at the beginning stage now of operationalizing this, and this means that housing counseling will have the same electronic data set as the rest of the industry, and will allow us to be much more deeply integrated. So you get to hear about our digital future in this webinar coming up, and we'll be ready to move forward on it. And we'll work on this Home Energy Advisor program, and we're hoping that there'll be some money available still for groups to pursue this. We'll see how that arranges itself. But with that, let me just say, please join if you have the ability, and let me hand it back over to Ellie and to our friends at Freddie and ClearlyEnergy.
Great. Thanks, Bruce. So Jake, if you want to get prepared to share screen, I'm going to quickly just say somebody was asking about what the Credco cost per individual tri-merge is $25.90. With CRS, it's $21 and change. And the difference, there is a difference between the reports. One of the big differences, the Credco report is a lender level credit report. It's the kind of report that a lender pulls, but as a HUD-approved housing counseling agency, you can pull it as a soft pull, where a lender will be pulling it as a hard pull. The CRS is a consumer level report and is not one that is used by lenders. So that's a little bit of the difference. All right, Jake, go ahead.
Let me unmute and get off. There we go. So I think we had thought of trying to get people started today, as opposed to showing another demo like I showed the video earlier. We wanted to show this slide, kind of give anyone the ability to test the application that wants to now on the call, as well as providing any sort of feedback that we can, as well as guidance if there are any questions. So just to reiterate, the application is available currently on iPhone and iPad in the Apple App Store. So by searching for remotely-home energy audits, or you can scan the QR code on your screen to start the application. So I think we could use this time then if anyone has any additional questions or any difficulties starting the application that they would like assistance with.
There is a question about somebody who has an Android phone.
Good question. So the software team is currently working on getting the Android version on the Google Play Store. We're working through the Android code right now. So that is something that is coming in the near future. We recognize the amount of people that have Androids as opposed to iPhones, but we started with iPhone considering the market share that Apple has on the smartphone market.
Okay. And then, so the other question is, what happens if so say you filled it out with your address and then you move? Will the old address be saved in the app, or will it eliminate the old info and save the new? And they're just wondering if that makes sense, what the question is. It makes total sense to me. They're just wondering what happens with the information in the app if you did it in one address and then moved to another one.
Well, I guess, I mean, so you can have as many homes as you want in the application that are saved on the application. All the information is stored there and then would be shared from the application. So it's not like you would lose data by moving homes. I guess if you're asking about, I mean, for instance, you would have to create a new assessment for the new home. I don't know if that's implied, but yes, you would not lose access to this information. You could do 100 homes if you wanted, if you had 100 homes, for instance. So this can all be stored and used and saved and viewed at a later date.
So I have a quick question I'd like to ask. So Jake, I live in a twin. So it asks, on which sides of this house are walls shared with other homes? And it says left side or right side. So I don't know if it matters, but do you do that because you're facing the street, or do you do that facing into the house?
Great question. So facing to the street would be the orientation of the home. So I guess if north is facing the street, then you would have east would be to your left and west to your right, would be how I would describe it. It's a good question.
So just to be clear, for the folks who are still on the webinar, the hope is that you are downloading the app and you're testing it out, and you're going to ask any questions that pop up, like what Bruce just did in the app. And somebody did ask, is the information that clients input into the app secured?
Yes, it is. The only way that the information is shared via API, excuse me, once you submit home energy assessment to share with the home energy assessment and generate the report. But none of this information has personally identifying information either. It's just the email address that is shared, as well as the home address. But it does not have any personal information shared or ever input in the assessment. And I would mention, I think some of the hangups can be throughout the assessment process. Using the augmented reality feature can stump people at times. I think it's imperative to have as good of lighting as possible when using that feature. Typically, backlit windows have posed difficulty. So trying to get everything as well lit, turning on lights in your house when using that feature can help expedite the process and help the phone to lock on. If you have a newer phone, and that being like an iPhone or iPad Pro, those models have LiDAR capabilities, which will help expedite the ability for the camera to lock on to the window, I guess the floor plane, the wall plane, and the window plane.
There's a bunch of things you got to answer before you get started with all that measuring, I'm seeing.
There are quite a few building envelope questions, indeed. But again, if you have any questions about them, hit
I
the
will
information.
I will share that um, the questions that are asked about the building envelope and what this is the same like set of questions and process that you would go through if you were um, ordered an assessor to come to the home. They would be collecting the same information, and it tends to be um, a several hour process. Um, for my personal experience, it took me about 30 minutes with in a 2,500 square foot home, and that was well before a lot of the enhancements that Jake and team have uh, incorporated into the application, especially with like uh, the measurement piece. Like you don't have to move any of your hardware or like your sofa or appliances in the kitchen and stuff like that. The augmented reality feature can do that measurement without that hurdle.
Okay, so let's see. There's somebody's wondering who gets the who gets the email address? Who does it get shared to? And is there any protection to keep scammers from reaching out about energy assessments? Oh, and before we move on and I forget again, one of the things I was thinking about as we were talking about what's the certification and so on, I'm wondering if there are any organizations that have thought about certifying some of their housing counselors as energy assessors and using it as a fee generating program. Because Danny and Jake, you both mentioned how expensive home energy assessments can be. And I would bet that a housing counselor at a nonprofit organization could potentially make this more affordable.
Yeah, that's definitely a use case. Another use case we were thinking about, like for the future of the application, is that if you were in a remote location, you didn't have access to an existing uh, home energy assessor, that you would almost have like uh, a Zoom type capability where the assessor could observe you while you're collecting the data and like advise you in case you were um, unable to or you had questions and you weren't sure like what entry to put in. That would create more uh, accessibility to energy raters, and then also like a potential future revenue stream for them as well, because they would be accessing customers that they wouldn't be able to otherwise. But that's another great use case that you mentioned, Ellie, as well.
And I guess just to answer the question about addresses and email addresses, to clarify, the email addresses and addresses are solely shared with ClearlyEnergy. We then your address would be shared with the Department of Energy's home energy score sandbox just to create the home energy score, but there's no other parties privy to this information. This information is not shared anywhere else. And again, it is just the email. And if you could use an email address that is not your main email address, the email address is only required so that we can provide you with the report back, just to give you the information as well as the rating. That's the only requirement for an email address. And then I can see in the chat there was a question again about understanding that iPhones are more costly on average. And I would say again that the Android version is coming. It is only available on iPhone right now just because we started on iPhone. And the Android version, our software team is working to have it on the App Store currently. So it is coming in the very near future. Good questions. And thank you for the testimonial, Danny.
Sure.
You know, one of the things I will say, a number of years ago, I live in New York State, so there's been a lot of energy-based incentives here for quite a few years. But I had a home energy assessment done by a certified energy assessor. The assessment itself, I will say, immediately they found that I had carbon monoxide issues in the house with the stove that I had. So we replaced our stove very quickly. Um, and But the downside of it was that they were a contractor as well as an energy assessor, and I don't know if you see that in there, Jake and Danny in the chat, but they also provided me with um, an estimate of what it would cost to make things more energy efficient in my house, and it ended up being between $25,000 and $30,000, which I promptly walked away from because it meant I have a house that was built in 1910, and I have plaster walls, and it meant, and I don't have insulation, and it would have meant a whole lot of work with the plaster to get insulation blown in. And the housing counseling agency that actually got me set up with this energy assessor was somewhat frustrated because the goal really is to come up with, here's the most expensive thing, here's the least expensive thing. And I was never provided with, if you don't want to do all this big work, here's an assessment and an estimated cost of some really minor things that we can do to make some big improvements. So I see it as one of the benefits of doing your own in-home energy assessment. Along with what Danny said, it doesn't end up getting published, but also you can really see on your own what are the things that are causing an issue and what might be easily repaired on your own at a lower cost,
Yeah.
bigger returns.
To build off of that, Ellie, I saw earlier in the chat, Christy posted a link to um, our Freddie Mac My Home page, which is our consumer facing like home ownership and home buying journey page or website. The link that she included is a blog post around how to make your home more energy and water efficient, and one of the links embedded within that is another blog post. I think it's called 6 Ways to Make Your Home, or Simple Fixes to Make Your Home More Efficient. There's definitely way more than 6. I'm actually working with the team to make updates to it, but there's definitely, very um, uh, simple measures that any homeowner or even tenant can make, irregardless of what the results of a home energy assessment would yield. That typically aren't tied to incentives. Things like, caulking and weatherproofing and putting aerators in your faucets, things of that nature that are very low cost, but all add up to less use and ultimately savings as well. Let me see if I could find that link. Yeah, here we go.
So what Jake put into the chat, I don't think everybody saw this, but it's important that you have location services enabled on your phone to ensure that the application works as good as possible. Somebody did post that it was freezing on them. Oh, so yeah, Jake, can you repost that and make sure it goes to everybody? Because I don't think the person who had the problem has actually seen it, Rosalind Epstein. So what it says is to ensure the application can use the phone's internal compass, ensure location services are turned on. Because Rosalind mentioned that the app was froze 2 to 3 times while determining the orientation of the home.
I think I should have put this. I think it's for everyone now. Sorry about the delay on the response there. That was just to the
That's
host.
okay. It's okay.
And just to maybe reiterate, if you're still having that issue, I've found that um, at times, depending on where you are in your house, maybe it can be an issue. Ideally, you would stand at your front door, slightly, maybe even just outside your front door. Um, but as long as you're facing the front orientation of your home, that would do the trick. So you could try playing around with where you are in your home. It could be a phone-based issue as opposed to just an application-based issue.
I will say to everybody, one of the things when we were planning this webinar that came up in our conversation with the Clearly Energy folks is that this application is being improved all the time based on things that they're hearing through this pilot project. So this is a pilot. So these things that come up and are, maybe an issue, it's important that you let the folks at Clearly Energy know. It helps to inform them about what they may need to do within the app to improve things. And some of the improvements that they've talked about that have happened just over the last couple of months are pretty significant. Jake, if you want to talk about a couple of those.
Definitely. Thank you, Ellie. I think we just got any hotline or chat room to give feedback. So that's a great question. We're currently working on developing some sort of, I guess, questionnaire that could be shared with stakeholders that are using the application, so that they could provide feedback that they have. Any feedback that is regarding user experience, difficulty understanding certain aspects of the assessment, whether it may be technical difficulties, anything of that nature that it could improve the user experience of using the remotely application, we're all ears for, and the feedback is invaluable. So we really appreciate that. Touching on what Ellie was mentioning, there have been various improvements that have been made to the application regarding how you use the augmented reality feature in terms of measurements. We've added the ability to aggregate windows. Like I said before, you don't have to measure each individual window. If you know that you have 6 of the same window, you can just select that and input that you have 6 of these, drastically increasing the amount of time that it takes to conduct the assessment. We've obviously added additional kind of helpful guides. So if you look through and hit, for instance, if you don't know what brick veneer is and you hit the little information button next to it, there will be pop-ups that provide guidance on what that may look like, and you can kind of base what you have in your home and what your siding may be based on what you see in the application if you're unsure. But any feedback is greatly appreciated. We've had various home energy assessors in New York that use the application, and to Danny's testament, these certified home energy assessors were able to reduce their time in the home by 75% using the application. So we're continually trying to make the tool more accessible as well as time and cost efficient. So any feedback is greatly appreciated.
So then, Jake, there isn't currently a specific hotline or, oh, there you go. Never mind. Carolyn just answered my question in the chat. You can send feedback to the link or reach out to us with any feedback on the app. When you say reach out to us, Carolyn, do you mean directly email you or Jake?
Just fill out that form and then it automatically
Okay.
comes to me, and then Jake or I will triage and either give folks a call or let them know. And this is for if you're having any technical issues or if you have suggestions on areas that you'd like to see for improvement.
Great.
Thank you, Carolyn.
You're welcome.
Where's the form on the website or the app? So I guess where's the form? There is no form on the app currently, but the link that Carolyn just shared in the chat, the clearlyenergy.com/feedback is how you would provide feedback in this instance. And to answer the second question, I know that the Spanish version has been translated. I will reach out to the software team and give you an exact date or a baseline for when that may be in the future. I think there are several moving parts, but it is one of the parts that is being updated as we speak. I can provide more if that person wants to, I guess they could reach out for feedback and ask again, or they could provide their email and we could follow up.
It
Well,
will-
also,
I was going to say
go
it will
ahead,
be
Carolyn.
available. It will be available this spring, as Jake said. We're in development. It has been translated, but we're doing some live environment testing of it, and then simultaneously working on the Android model. So the Android model will be released first, and then we also have to do some translating for the Android version. But it will be this spring.
Thank you, Carolyn.
You're welcome.
If you get any dates specifically about either one of those things, if you let us know, we can get it right out to our listserv so everybody hears about it. And it'll be another reminder about the app.
Thank you.
Oh, another question just popped in.
Regarding the Spanish and English. Amazing. Yeah, so we'll keep everyone updated once that has been released in the coming months in the spring.
Yes.
Carolyn, do you know if other languages are being added, or is it, I know of Spanish at this point, or are you able to touch on that?
Yes, so we have developed a list of common languages that are in some of the jurisdictions or partners that we're working with. So it is in our development list, but we started first with Spanish, but we have a number of others that are in the queue for later this year.
We seem to have a pause in questions and in comments. And just as I say that, doesn't something pop in?
Well, this is a good question. Carolyn, you might want to step in here, but the Home Energy Score program is, of course, a US based program. I can't speak on international growth at this moment.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we've talked to a number of folks in Canada, but NRCan, which is similar to the U.S. Department of Energy, they have their own labeling system that they use. They don't use Home Energy Score, and certainly over 30 countries worldwide have residential labeling programs that are mandatory, especially in the EU. So we've just modeled it after what we have right now in the US, but we've designed remotely to be flexible in that it can be used as simple as data collection all the way to a home energy score. So if you have partners outside the US that are looking for a tool or it needs to be customized, that's something that we can definitely talk to folks about.
Well, great. Well, thanks again for all of this wonderful information. And everybody, if as you're using this, you have more thoughts, write them down and then use that link that Carolyn put into the chat to submit your feedback and your questions. And I guess with that, we'll say goodbye until our next webinar, which is right now, April 17th, and that's the MISMO webinar. I will let everybody know we are working on other member benefits that potentially on April 10th, we're going to be having a webinar on that. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And again, thanks everybody and keep up the great work.